Hello, Rusty. You here?
Unmute.
Can you hear me?
Kisha, read.
Yes. Can you?
Yay! I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So it's already recording, but I'll pause and then I'll start us up and
Okay.
then we'll get going from there and this first bit will get edited out.
All right. Great.
All right. So my style is just we're just going to chat and it will go where we go with it. I usually open it up and tell a little bit about the person, but I really let you elaborate on who you are and what your work is and all of that. So we trail from there.
Okay.
All right.
Hey,
Here we go.
I'm gonna get a little chair. One sec. One sec.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry. I usually stand at my computer, but now I'm gonna just get comfy since I don't have to look at anything. You don't have to look at me. And
I
so,
know I it helps me. It helps me to focus on, just the talking and not what my face looks like on the screen or if I'm making silly faces or, that kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, definitely. Hey, before we get rolling, tell me
Mhm.
more about DEY and who's listening, who's gonna listen to this, and yeah.
Who's listening right now as we're recording? Our producers. Who's
Oh,
going to listen to the podcast
yeah.
are DEY spans quite large. It is national and international. It
Okay.
is DEY stands for Defending the Early Years. It's a group that focuses on advocacy, equity, justice for children. It focuses a lot on quality and developmentally appropriate um, education and care for young children. And that's
Hmm.
8 years old and under, early childhood. It really came about after the Common Core started really disintegrating education as we know it.
Yeah. Yep.
And it just picked up from there. So there's a lot of resources from many documentaries to articles. DEY is so widely respected that they have done work that has shifted policy, and it's just a group of wonderful women who are led by Denisha Jones currently, but was started by Nancy Carlson Page and Diane. I can't think of Diane's last name right now for some reason. Um, but it's just this labor of love, grassroots organization that gives back. They have many grants that they give to small programs to get the word out about why children learn through play, why children are not designed to be sitting at desks or being tested, and why recess is important and things like that. So it is something that I fully stand behind.
Yeah.
And the audience is a lot of the same audience that we have,
Hmm.
but it also spans into public school teachers, policymakers, people who work specifically in the advocacy field. So it's going to talk to your people that you already talked to, but also grow your audience and grow the people who will now know who Rusty Keeler is.
Cool. Well, it sounds amazing. So I'm honored to be, to add my
Wonderful.
voice to the mix of it all. That's
All right,
cool. Yeah.
so I am going to pause for a few seconds and then I am going to start. I'll give a short introduction of kind of who you are, and then I'll ask you to tell us more about yourself. You
Okay.
ready?
Yes.
All right.
Slide over here. One second. One second.
Okay.
If I don't have to look at the computer, I can look out the window. So
Okay.
I'll just move my. This is all new. Yeah. Okay.
All right. And silence for 3 seconds. Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Defending the Early Years podcast. I'm Kisha Reed here, and today I have a gentleman who I have met many, many years ago and continue to watch him flourish and grow and change in his work, Rusty Keeler. Hey, Rusty.
Hey, hello, hello.
Rusty, I've met as a designer and builder of natural playground environments for children, but he didn't stop there. He also wrote wonderful books. He also designed wonderful resources and play equipment for programs. He currently is hosting his own podcast, and there's just so much in between. So I was excited to invite Rusty here with us today so that he can tell us a little bit about his work, what drives him, where he's going. What's going on for you, Rusty?
Yeah. Well, I am a believer in play and the importance of early childhood and all of childhood, and an advocate of like supporting children's play and child-directed play and the freedom to play and the freedom to be outside in the world. And I'm a nature person and getting outside. So I'm about kids getting outside and anything that I can do to facilitate that and inspire that in other people, both in building beautiful natural environments, but also inspiring other people to add nature to their yard. Also, children, risky play, also loose parts, and thinking about education in school and systems and how we can defend the early
Yes.
years and defend childhood. So yeah, so I'm on a mission like you and
Yes.
all our listeners here. I'm part of it.
When I first met you, one of the I think I'm pretty sure that I knew who you were prior to seeing one of your playgrounds, but I saw your work at the Highlander School. Um,
Oh yeah.
and I was like, "Whoa, this is pretty cool." And I think maybe that's where I began following you, and we kind of got to know each other and met each other a couple times. But your work has evolved and changed and shifted, which is so beautiful to watch and fascinating to watch.
Thank
Can
you.
you tell us like how your perspective and your work has changed and shifted, and what inspired that change that I've seen through the years?
Yeah, yeah. So, I come at all this through design. I was an industrial designer. And so not education, but so industrial design, which is like product design. But interestingly, my first job out of college was designing playground equipment, fixed playground equipment. And so I'd moved out west. Go west, young man, and find yourself. And I did. That worked. So, yeah, I found play and designing for play and learning about the importance of play and in children's lives. And then I also found that I loved, designing for play and to stimulate different kinds of play, social, emotional, intellectual, physical, all that. And then I got a chance, and I love that. But then I got a chance to work at a sister company in the Netherlands, in Europe, designing
Mm,
over there. And that's kind of, I had all these aha moments,
mhm.
when my mind was blown, and it was more one of a kind
Yeah.
play environments, more natural, more messy, more like every kindergarten I visited had, a little hill with that was eroded because of kids going up and down it, and berry bushes and mess or chickens or all this stuff. And I was like, oh wow, that's different. I was kind of coming in to it as like equipment focused. That's what a playground is. But suddenly it was like, oh no, it's the whole environment. And you can have artists and builders and family members can help build it and all this. And then I started thinking about my own childhood, and I was like, I had fields behind my house, and I explored in all the different seasons and weather and picking berry bushes, cherry trees and all that stuff. And so I really felt like, oh, that was important in my life, and find connecting to the earth and then to my place on the earth as a child,
Mhm.
even feeling that. And I felt like, oh, this is how environments could be for
Yeah, that's what
children.
it's all about. I
Yeah.
think that's the key to a lot of the shift that we need to see in early childhood. Us going back to that place for ourselves. And I often say, not us looking it not just simply looking back at it, because you can look back but through adult lens and you're still going to see a distorted, picture, but
Mhm.
us actually bringing our whole selves back there. Like, how did we feel? What did it smell like? What did you do? What did you touch? And that's what is going to be that shift that allows us to trust children and trust nature and trust the innate sense of our place in this world that we come here with, but we need to like hold on to. It starts to fade and we start to get it beaten out of us. So that's a lot of people who I talk to about like, how'd you get here? Their story sounds similar. Like they had to take themselves to that place
Mhm.
where they recall their own experiences. So that is amazing. I didn't know that. I didn't know that part of your story. So that's wonderful. And the hill, I'm glad you spoke of the hill, because after seeing your work,
Mhm.
your hill that you saw came all the way back to me and inspired me to build a hill slide. And let me just tell you, it was not easy.
Ah, uh-huh. Okay, yeah, what
It was
to install it, build it, make
Oh,
it?
we did. It was fun. We did it. It wasn't easy. It was so worth it though. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite pictures are children sliding down. There's a slide next to it, but not as fun as the mud on the slide in that eroded spot that became a mud hill, a mud slide.
Ah, yes. Yes, yes.
So it's just the effect that your trip had on not just yourself, but on everyone
Mm.
who gets to witness your transformation and the books and the different things that you've put out there. It's phenomenal. What inspired you to, um I guess, take this newfound information and spread it far and wide? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was this idea of just really, really believing in this for
Mhm,
children and
mhm,
wanting as as many people and as many children to have those kind of opportunities of connecting with nature and the seasons and ladybugs and butterflies and digging in the mud. And, I
mhm,
could do as many as I could. I was going full power as a young man, trying to
mm,
do as many designs and builds and but I also knew that I like presenting the ideas, and I always
mhm,
got such positive feedback from educators and caregivers of like, wow, wide eyes of like, oh, we want to do this, and so I just want to get it all out there, like not hold on to anything like this is mine or
mhm,
this is anything. I just wanted all the ideas to flow out there, and I'm a visual person, so getting pictures out of this stuff out there to kind of people's imaginations and so I just wanted more and more people to do this. And I think even as I've evolved, it's in the beginning I was like, I want everyone to design natural playscapes, and I still like that idea. I still want people
yeah.
to do that, but even more so, I want people to, because not everybody has a budget, not everybody can suddenly design a natural. You're always evolving and doing all these amazing things and taking it to the next level, but a lot of other centers don't have maybe the time or the energy or the community
Or the
support.
permission.
Yeah, the permission, and but
Mhm,
they might be able to try one little thing.
mhm,
So that's what I'm about now, is like, what's the smallest little change you can make
mhm.
to your outdoor space? Yeah,
Because it's contagious, right? You make that small little
that's it.
change,
Yep.
and the spark that it ignites, you get to see the children in a different way. And I always find that it grows from there. So if there are programs that don't have the permission, their admin is like, absolutely not, we're not doing that. But they can get approval for that little thing, and then the children explore it, and the teachers see that side of the children, and the parents see that joy that it brings, and the admin have to follow suit with that, and you kind of like show and prove.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And
Yeah.
it really takes the program itself on a journey. And what you said about, at first I wanted everybody to do it, and I was the same way. And I
Mhm.
like you said, I still think every child needs this. I
Yep.
still think everybody should do it, but I also am older now and the realities of this have set in, and I agree. Take it from a grain of salt and let it pile on. Let it pile on and grow. Um One thing that you mentioned was you have built sites that involved the community, that involved families. Um, would you suggest that programs involve the community, involve families? Like
Absolutely.
where would a let's say I'm a program in the middle of, I don't know, wherever, and I just heard this podcast and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do this. I don't have a huge budget, but I have the passion. Do you have any suggestions for how and where they should start? What are some baby steps that people can do?
Yes, yes, I have suggestions. So, one of my favorite mottos with all this is dream big, start small, and never stop.
Mhm.
So, you can see beautiful natural play environments where there's, hills and sand areas and water play and loose part, all this stuff. And that might be far from where you're at now, but that could be the dream. But sometimes people get overwhelmed and think, "Oh, I can never get there. It's so big." But that's okay. We can dream big, but then that idea, like we're saying, of starting small, pick a first project to try, pick first loose parts, pick, something that you can that's very doable and can be successful. Getting the community as a part of it is another big factor of getting, achieving your dreams. Because every project that I've worked on has started with one person that had it in their heart. Like, I want to add nature. I want to do loose parts. I want to create a beautiful space. I want a garden. I want, all this stuff. But they don't have to be the person that knows exactly how it's all going to work or what
Mhm.
plants to plant or, trees to go plant or, how to build things. But they have it in their heart. I want to do this. And then the next step I always say is then, okay, trying to get a few other people excited with you. And you could think about forming a little playscape committee, and maybe those people are other teachers or parents that are interested in this idea, a spouse or family member that knows how to build a little bit or has a green thumb. And those people can help you with kind of the details. But you might be the one that's excited. All right, I want to do this. And then you get other people excited. And then you might dream up a whole plan, or you start to think about what you want to do. And then you, in those bite-sized pieces, you start tackling some of the projects. And it might be something like, all right, we want to build a mud kitchen. So, and a mud kitchen, again, if you're at an elementary school and they're not ready for like full on mud, mud kitchen doesn't even have to have mud, right? It could just be like a table space with some pots and pans and loose parts. You could use the wood chips, you could use, you could use the dirt, you could use the gravel, sand, whatever. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be muddy, but just the idea, if you want to start adding kind of loose parts, a little bit messy or more child-led stuff, you pick a project like that, and then you do a little research. You go on Pinterest, you Google it, you mud kitchens for, whatever age group you're working with, and suddenly you see all these designs and people changing pallets into mud kitchens, and
Mhm.
and you start showing that to your little committee, and then you get excited, and you find someone knows where you can get wood, and then someone knows a cousin who's a carpenter and they can come on and help, and suddenly you can be like, all right, we're going to have like, let's have a little build day for half a day on Saturday. You pick a day and somebody's, you ask a pizza place, we're going to build this for kids, could you donate some pizzas? Or somebody brings food and you make it like a little party out of it. And it's a
Yep.
great experience. You're building the environment, but you're also building your community. And
Community,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, so
Wonderful.
I love it, I love it.
So your work evolved, as you said, and you developed further and further into what many of our listeners will understand to be called adventure play or risky play.
Mhm.
And then you wrote an amazing book.
With an amazing cover.
But I was gonna say that, but I was like,
Oh, go
I'm not
ahead.
gonna say that.
I'll say it. Picture photograph by Keisha Reed.
That is so exciting. And I use that book continuously for
Mm,
inspiration.
mm.
It's so thought out and well organized because
Thank you.
it
Thank you.
talks about the licensing aspect,
Yep.
the
Yep.
buy-in, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Because let's say you started small and you got this community around it, and then people started to just see the light and the value, and it grew and it grew and it grew. Now there's this elephant in the room, and it's licensing, and it's
Mhm.
families, and it's that buy-in aspect, and your book really breaks that down
Mhm.
um in a way that I think is digestible and usable. Like you can take those tools and actually confidently advocate for your program. So that's one of the bonuses. Can you tell us the title of the book? I don't want to get it wrong.
Sure. Adventures in risky play. What is your yes?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what in your definition is a risky play?
Ah, yes. Um, there's been some different research and people doing, studies of risky play, and there's different categories. People come up with different categories about risky play. But I say that risky play is really just play. It's just play, but it might be play that makes us nervous as adults, or it's something children, are taking a little chance. They're going outside maybe their normal comfort zone. But I'm interested. I love play, and I love children being free to be in the flow of play wherever it takes them.
Mhm.
But I'm also very fascinated by adults' role in play,
Mm,
supporting play, or saying, when do they say yes? When do they say no? And why do we say no? And often people say no for not because it's actually something bad's going to happen to the child, but maybe just because it makes them nervous.
mhm.
Oh my gosh, I don't like children bouncing on the log. They could, we think of all the terrible things that could happen. And yeah, so that we say no, and then we feel like, okay, I prevented that. But maybe that was just us. And so I'm very fascinated almost in like the psychology of
Yes.
risky play, right? Yeah.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
kind of I feel that because that's something that I'm really interested in across the board when it comes to children and like the adults and how we engage in their
Hmm.
play, how we engage around their play, how we see their play, like our observation lens. So yeah, I understand that fascination that you have there.
It's
So
interesting. So I've traveled all over. So my whole career, I've been working all over the place, all over North America, different countries, and so I've seen so many examples of people doing incredible things. And so I have seen people and I've also seen people think, oh, we can't do that because licensing
mhm.
won't say that, or we can't do this, or we can't. And in the same region, in the same town, with the same licensor, I've seen people that are like, we totally can do that. And we just tell her why we're doing it and how we keep it safe and all that. And so I've seen such a range of all sorts of stuff from you and farm things and wild stuff and loose parts and grass growing tall and all this of like and so many examples that you can point to. It's like they're doing it. Okay, I've
Mhm.
seen this. You might think you can't, but people are doing this. And but then I'm fascinated then, well, okay, how? Like why do you feel like you're able to do that? Or what's your relationship with your licensor that you talk to them and they trust you to know
Mhm.
that you know what you're doing. And that was part of with the book of why I interviewed licensors at the state level and the federal level, because that's such a part of the whole. Risky play is such a multi-layered, complex, fascinating subject. Um, Ultimately, the bottom is that we just want children to be able to play, but it's so complicated. But with
Yeah.
licensing, they amazingly, those people I interviewed said they believe in risky play and they know it's important for children's healthy growth and development. They said the key is, that you need to kind of explain what you're doing. You need to
Mhm.
show that you know what you're doing. And I showed a picture one time of one of your mud kitchen setups with colored water, grass growing tall, beat up pots and pans, an old canoe with grass growing in it, and all this. And I was, blabbing about how much I like it. And I was at a conference for uh, licensors. They invited me in to talk about risky play, and so I'm talking about this, and then somebody raised their hand and said, "Are you saying this is good or this is bad?" And I said, "Good. I am saying this is good." But yeah, right? It was fascinating because that really the light bulb went off for me of like when licensors come in, they have to make that assessment. Like,
Mhm.
okay, there's crazy stuff going on here. Did this person do this on purpose?
Yes.
Or is this
Yes.
negligence, right? Is this
Yes.
best practice or worst practice? Because
Mhm.
in some ways it almost looks the same.
Mhm.
So then you have to just
And
be
it
like,
could be the
yeah,
same if you don't have the intentionality,
yeah.
the understanding, and the purpose behind it.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
that
that's
you're doing this on purpose. This is
yeah.
intentional, and here's
Mhm.
why, and here's how, dot, dot, dot. You have all the reasons why you're doing it, and
Mhm. I
yeah.
found that, and I've had so many specialists over the years, but I found that with each one, if I could almost immediately establish that understanding that this is intentional, this is why, this is what happens. Here, stand with me. Let's observe this in action. After that, there was this level of trust.
Yeah.
I at most times, many times, I became a resource for them versus them
Ah,
being a resource for
yes.
me.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I think books like yours and this work that DEY does is important because what it does is it I guess arms, or what is the word I'm trying to think of? It equips
Mhm.
educators with the tools that they need to be able to advocate and back up this work, back up this
Yeah.
program, back up
Yep.
what we're doing. And one thing that you said you met with licensors. That's amazing. And I want to tell you that right now, Maryland is working on their outdoor preschool regulations. And
Yes.
I was excited to read over it because one, because I may apply to have an outdoor aspect to my program, but also
Of
we're
course.
largely outdoor anyway. And
Yep.
in my mindset, I'm like, well, if they can do it, then we can do it. Like having a building doesn't mean that suddenly you can't have some of the same freedoms that the outdoor programs have.
Mhm.
So I was
Mhm.
reading over them just trying to see like, what can we now do that maybe previously we weren't allowed to do? And I was so excited to see a whole section on risky play
Mhm.
and what risk versus hazard is.
Yep.
And this language that I've spoken and that I've heard and other people speak is now in the regs. So the
That's
work
it.
that you've done
Yeah.
over these years, it's having a real ripple effect. So
That is
thank
so awesome.
you
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much for being able to frame it in such a beautiful professional way that it can be digested and then used to make change.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the dream of like, okay, look, people are doing this, but we want it to be done on scale, at scale,
Yes.
and less restrictions on children. It's
Mhm,
still, you got to be
mhm,
mindful and do your supervision, and be a
mhm.
good support and guide. But we want to try to like take some of the shackles off, and especially when you're talking about like education kind of coming down, academics coming down on
Mhm.
children. We want to push that back and have the freedom for child
Yeah,
discovery and
because
play.
the lack of real, free, wild play is having a real effect on human development. It's like changing
Yeah.
who we are, who we're becoming.
Yes.
And I'm all for evolution, but I don't want to evolve in that. I don't want to like
That's right.
evolve in negative
Devolve.
ways. Yeah, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
I don't
Gosh,
want to
come
do
on
that.
now. No, no.
I feel like it's time, it's time
Gosh.
to kind of guard and protect. childhood.
Yeah, yeah. And so I know I feel like it is. It's like, okay, we need to make a stand at this
Mhm,
point. Like the
mhm,
pendulum has switched so far. And I feel like with these regulations and this kind of thinking that we are moving it. But
mhm,
so many things have happened that have limited childhood, that have put more
mhm,
restrictions, that have more scheduling or less freedom and all these kinds of things and the academics crushing down and all this kind of stuff and children's mental health and all this stuff. And it's like, whoa, yeah, we need to say, hey, this is too much. Like,
it is.
and I
Yeah,
feel like all those little things, parents being, want to protect their kids and keeping them inside more, or
mhm,
academics wanting kids to learn, reading and what they need to learn, but thinking it's supposed, we need to do it earlier. All these ideas, they were sort of well-intentioned or well-meaning or whatever, but the goal was never to like, oh, we're gonna damage childhood and hurt
mhm,
children's mental health, and yet that's the result. And I always feel like, okay, that stuff didn't happen intentionally,
mhm.
but to get out of it, because we're there, we need to be intentional. Like
Yes,
like we
yes.
need to work, right? We need to
Mhm.
work together. We need to like, yeah, draw the
Yeah,
line in the sand.
for sure. We need to have a united, collaborative process here to draw the line in the sand. I like the way you put that. Now, Rusty, can you tell us how people can get in contact with you, where they can find your book? I know you
Yeah.
also speak and present and consult. Tell us where folks can find you.
Yeah. So you can look for my website, rustykeeler.com. And I have a podcast. There's lots of pictures there. There's design examples. There's free resources that are fun, loose parts guides and nature play design step tips and steps
Mhm.
and risky play things. And then I have a podcast that you can find on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. It's called the Play Nature Podcast. And yeah, I have online courses, and then yes,
You
I
have
do.
resources also that people can find and purchase, right? Because if
That's
someone just wants to start in a corner and maybe add some nature play materials to their program, where can they find your line of nature play materials?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I designed a line of outdoor furnishings with Kaplan,
Okay.
and that's called Nature to Play. And so it's this great durable outdoor wood stuff that will last for years and years. I was always like, kids, I want these tables to be strong enough kids could be dancing on top of them, jumping on them, and
Hmm.
so they're big and beefy. So if you're looking to do like a outdoor classroom and that kind of stuff, there's some fun furnishings there. And then on my website, I sell like some of those big beefy hill slides that you were talking
Yes.
about, and
Yes.
yeah, yeah, and
Wonderful. And those are hard to find. So for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Thank you so much, Rusty. Thank you for your work, your continued passion.
yeah.
And I just look forward to continuing to follow your work and journey and be inspired by you. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna keep following you too.
Sure.
Absolutely. All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody, for listening to another episode of the Defending the Early Years podcast. See you next time. Bye bye.
Yay. Okay, let me see if I record this. Um, Hi, that was so great, Keisha. Yeah, I felt like that was so short. We just got started, and then we're wrapping up. So there's certainly lots to talk about. I would, yeah, let's get you scheduled as soon as possible. I'm also doing a little part now that I'm doing a little visual. So I'm with guests now. I'm having like 5 or 6 pictures that we talk about, and they could. I'd love like pictures of maybe you could send me some pictures, and then we would use that for like a little YouTube clip. Or something that people could go to. We'll have that like in the show notes. So if, the conversation will be just audio, but we'll have another bonus part of like you and I looking at some of the wild stuff in your yard or looking at your yard and stuff like that. So if you want to send me like a handful of pictures that we could talk about for like 10 minutes or so, that would be awesome. Or I could pull pictures that you've sent me before, either way. So I'm putting you down for the 15th here. I'm putting it in. But then you can let me know if that works.